right? We are busy with polynomials, and this is more like your third lesson in polynomials. So you should know what's happening here now. It's more of now using all your skills to get this exercise going. So in this particular lesson, I'm interested in teaching you how to now completely factorize these cubic functions that we have seen a lot of in the previous lessons. So if I must start with the question on the board already, we have the function here and we've been asked to factorize it completely. So in this situation, we can tell we want to find factors of this function. And what we remember very well is that when we divide something by a factor, that is the time when the remainder is 0. So we would like to find the value of x that will give us 0 if we substitute here. So that is the one way we use to determine the factors. Let's see. So the way we do it is that we actually start with 1 and minus 1. You substitute 1 and see if it gives you 0. If it doesn't, then try minus 1. Then after that, you try 2 and then try negative 2. Normally, you won't even have to get to negative 3. On these ones, usually you get, these are factors normally of these one, of the number here. Just say this times that to be 40. So 1, 2, 3 may not be. So in this situation, you'll be looking for them over here most probably. So let us see how, use your calculator, put these values of x in here and see which one will give you 0. That will be the first thing we want. We want something that will give us a remainder of 0. We are building on our factor theorem and our remainder theorem, remember that. So, since I did this one in advance, I already know that it is actually function of 2 that is equal to 0 here. That is what I got. So if function of 2 is equal to 0, here is the good manners. You then say, therefore, it is actually x minus 2, which is a factor. Okay, so you have to be able to do this. Check the previous lessons if you forgot how to get the remainder and why we are saying it's a factor. The moment that gives you 0, it means this is a factor right there of that one. So it's from the previous lesson. So of course, now to write function of x, you want to fully factorize it. Like the way you can say 15 is 3 times 5, you have both factors like this. So in this situation, you just know that 3 is a factor. We also want to know about 5. We want you to fully factorize, not just to tell us one of the factors that is there. So make it a point that you get that right. So in this situation, we seem to have x minus 2. So x minus 2 is already a factor here. So we want to get the other factors. So to do that, there is a method I use, which I prefer you would use as well. You are going to ask yourself, what do you multiply x with so you can get x cubed? And in this situation, it will be x squared. Then the number in the middle, don't worry about it for now. You just say bx, where you do not know what b is. And then you say, what number do I multiply minus 2 with so I can get positive 40? And I'm sure you are appreciating how that should be minus 20. So you have it like this. It's the method we are going to use. So to fully factorize, we have to find b. After some time, you can find b without wasting much time, but this is the method we're going to use. X should multiply that one and this one multiplying that. So you have to find terms that have x squared in them. I was going to say expand everything and then equate the coefficients with that, but it's not necessary. You can just find a place where there is x squared in the expansion of this, and you get it when you multiply the first and the second, and then the second term of this binomial to the first of this trinomial. So it should be easy to remember. So if I say x times bx, I'll get bx squared. And if I say that times that, I should get minus 2x squared. I don't have to expand the whole thing to be able to extract these terms. No, I can just extract them right from the beginning. What I'm saying is that equate it to the original equation, but to a term with x squared. As you can see, the term with x squared there is minus x squared. So you equate those. Now, since it's about coefficients, you just take the coefficient, we are simply equating coefficients here. Okay, that's what we are doing. So in this situation, notice how your b will be equal to 1. So if b is 1, if I am to fully factorize this one, I'll say x minus 2. Notice now I'm going to put 1 there and that. As times you'll be done factorizing, you may find that the second bracket won't factorize any further, but in this situation it does look like it can. So we are not going to leave it there. We're going to factorize it. Two numbers you multiply to get minus 20. When you add, you get 1, it could be plus 5 and negative 4. So at this point, you can say you have factorized this expression very easily. So here it is. You are using this method to factorize. So let me build on that so you can learn how to do this fast. So why don't I quickly put another function, say x cubed, and then plus 2x squared minus 5x. Let's put minus 6 over here. Again, you are going to try function of 1. See which value of x will give you 0 when you substitute. So you want the remainder of 0, so you try 1. If it doesn't give you 0, you go to minus 1. If it doesn't give you 0, you go to 2, you go to minus 2, you go to 3, then minus. Normally you won't have to go that far. So in this situation, it is actually function of minus 1 here that will give you 0 for this particular one. So if function of minus 1 is 0, it means that it is x plus 1, which is a factor in this situation. So if x plus 1 is a factor, it means you can write function of x as x plus 1, and then you ask yourself, what do you multiply x with to get x cubed? And you're right, it is x squared. Then the middle term, don't worry about it. Then what do you multiply 1 with? So you can get minus 6. It should be minus 6. So I am going to just do what I asked you to do first and second and first. Those are the terms you multiply in this situation. So you get bx squared, then you get plus x squared. You equate it to the term with x squared here. If there is no term with x squared, you actually equate it to 0x squared. It will work. So it will be 2x squared here. So it's b plus 1 in this situation, which is actually equal to 2 if I equate the coefficients. Notice how my function of x can now be written as x plus 1, which is this one. In place of b, I am going to put, you can see how b is 1, huh? So I'm going to put 1 there and say minus 6. It does look like this one can be factorized as well, some more. So let me do that. It will be x. I wanted two numbers that we multiply to get minus 6. When we add, we get 1. That should be positive 3 and minus 2. Yeah, of course. Okay, so we fully factorized that one as well. So let's go now that you have this skill. I think I can now start putting some coefficients here that are not 1 and see if you will be able to get it still. So let us see how that goes. Number 3 should be simple. Now, let me make it interesting. So let's say you were now given that you were given the factor. At times they do. So if you're given that 2x minus 1 is a factor of function of x, which in this situation, let me make it 4x cubed minus 8x squared, and then minus x plus 2, like this. So if you're told 2x minus 1 is a factor of 4x cubed minus 8x squared minus x plus 2, and then you are asked to solve for function of x is equal to 0. This is another way of asking you. So you can be asked to factorize completely, or you can be asked just like this. So the factorizing completely is no longer the question for this one, but we still are going to be expected to factorize. You cannot answer that one without factorizing first. So again, in this situation, I'm not going to say, oh, which function will give you 0? I already know that 2x minus 1 is a factor. Interesting how I'm rewriting that. So what we have to do is to write 2x minus 1 here and get ready for the second bracket. So to get the second bracket going, you say, what should I multiply 2x with so I can get 4x cubed? And 2 has to be multiplied by 2, and of course x has to be multiplied with x squared. So make sure that it's true when you multiply right here. The middle term is what you are not going to be able to find easily, so you just write it as bx. Then you say, what should I multiply minus 1 with so I can get that 2 over there? Let's just make sure it is 2, yes. So what should I multiply minus 1 with so we can get 2? I'm sure you're saying minus 2 wherever you are. Alright, so now that the sum is like this, you now know the procedure. The first with the second and the second with the first. You multiply them like that. So make sure you do that properly. So in this situation, when there is a coefficient, you want to be extra careful. It is 2bx squared when you multiply that and that. Then when I multiply these two, I should get minus 2x squared over there, and that, people, is equal to this one over there, which is minus 8x squared, like this. So I managed to equate the terms with x squared. So I could ask you to just directly take coefficients from here, but again, at the same time, I don't want you to make unnecessary mistakes. So in this situation, it does look like 2b is minus 6 and your b is negative 3 here from what I'm noticing. So your function of x can easily be written now as 2x minus 1, 2x squared. Let's put b of minus 3 over there and say minus 2. So as you can see, we have factorized it, but this one may factorize as well. So you want to check if you have such numbers in your factorization. So in this situation, you can see that 2 can work there and 2x plus 1 should be able to work. So I am going to factor, whichever method you use to factorize, just go ahead and do it. So 2x should work here. We have our x. Yeah, now you can even use your calculator to do this. Okay, and this would work. So like that. So this is again another way of asking. They can simply ask you to solve for x. Rather, since we are solving for x, I almost left it. So we are saying this whole thing here, it's factorized now. We are saying this side there is 0. So if there was 0 in place of function of x, I'm not going to do it again. You will find your x values. For this one, it will be 1 over 2. For that one, it will be negative 1 over 2. And for that one, it will be just 2. So you would have solved that one easily, so to speak. Okay, let's get the skill going. There are many ways in which they can ask you to do this, solve for x, and then we are going to do this a lot when we do the functions themselves. the cubic functions. So when we do cubic functions, it will be more like you're supposed to find x-intercepts, points of intersection, and stuff like that. So why don't I give you a feel of how that is? Let me just give you number 4 over there. So let us say you were asked a question such as this. Determine the x-intercepts. Number 4. Determine the coordinates of the x-intercepts of function of x. Let's see which function we can easily put there. X cubed minus 4x squared should work, and there is minus 3x plus 18 there. Okay, as usual, you try. In this situation, if you want to find x-intercepts, for x-intercepts, let me just write it down. For x-intercepts, we know our y should be equal to 0. So in this situation, our y is function of x. So it's like you're solving for function of x is equal to 0 anyway. So this is what you eventually want to solve for. But first, let's factorize this guy over there. To factorize that one, I'll have to find the value of x that will give me 0. So let's try a few. I'm seeing 3 should work. Function of 3 should be able to give you 0 over there. So what it means is that x minus 3 is a factor in this situation. So if x minus 3 is a factor, you should be able to now write function of x like this. Just making sure 3 is a factor there. Okay, so as we can see, you ask yourself, x, what should I multiply x with to get x cubed? Now I think you get the hang of this. It should be x squared. The middle term, you have to worry, you do not have to worry at all. So then minus 3 to multiply to get 18. That should be 6, but it should be negative 6, so it can be positive 18 on the other side. Alright, so now we know that it is the first and second, second and first, like this. So that should work. Equate it to the term with x squared on the other side. That is lovely. Then minus 4. Then our b this time is negative 1. So if b is negative 1, I can really write it, function of x now is x minus 3, then x squared minus x minus 6. If it factorizes more, let me put 0 here. Remember, we are solving for function of x is equal to 0. So it should be x minus 3 here. I don't want to switch on my brain, but here we are. It should be this. And from what we can see here, x is equal to 3 twice, and we seem to have x of minus 2 as well. So since these are coordinates, you don't want to just write them whichever way. This is how you will write the coordinates. So you want the coordinates of the x-intercepts. So these will be the coordinates of the x-intercept of this one. So it should be again simple to see. Let's have the last one. So you can go and do your factorization and your equations. Your books give you quite a lot of exercises on this one. You will enjoy doing it. So let's go for the 5th one. So for this one, here is what it says. So we have to consider the 2 given functions. So we have function of x. Consider these two. 2x cubed minus x squared minus 4x minus 7. And then you have gx, which is x cubed minus 3x minus 8, like this. So you have these 2 functions. You want to determine the values of x for which these 2 graphs will intersect. So in other words, you want the point of intersection of these two functions. If I may simplify the question a bit. So if you want the point of intersection of these two functions, from what we know, for a point of intersection, you just have to say function of x is equal to gx. We know that. I'm going to do that one now. Not a problem. So if I take these things to one side, it does look like there is no x squared here, so we just write this one. And then this and that, it should be minus x. That would be plus 1 is equal to 0. This is what I'm solving. So what you can do at this point is to change this whole thing to function of x. And then you factorize using the methods we're talking about. But in this situation, since it's looking very simple to factorize, I'm going to just use factorization. So I'll say x here minus 1. And since I'm factorizing by grouping, I can as well just repeat this bracket and take minus 1 there. You can see that that would be correct. So if I factorize by grouping, I should have x squared minus 1 and x minus 1 like that. This is a difference of 2 squares. And then this one. So we've got our 3, it's actually 2. So x is equal to 1 twice and x is equal to negative 1 is another solution. So I don't want to assume that some of you just really don't like factorizing. So I'm going to say, let's say you didn't take this way. You, however, thought of function of x as x cubed minus x squared minus x plus 1. So here, so what you can do is exactly what we talked about. You find the value of x that will give you 0. And in this situation, certainly 1 will. So since function of 1 is 0, it means x minus 1 is a factor. This is what you would do normally after you learn polynomials. This is most probably the way your brain will function. So function of x will now be x minus 1. And then you put x squared here. You'll be x in the middle. And then to get 1, you should have minus 1 here. So first and second, second and first, and equate it to minus x squared. It does look like b minus 1 will be equal to minus 1. Interesting. B is equal to 0. So what it means, this method was annoying actually. So let's see, x minus 1 will be x squared. Oh, no. It's actually the same. Okay, this is how you are going to simply do it. Notice it's a difference of 2 squares, so you write x minus 1, x plus 1 to give you your 1 twice, and x of minus 1 as well. So it works anyway. So make it a point that you understand how to factorize, how to use this method here. Long division, you do it only if you're asked, because it's not always necessary. There's also that synthetic method that we talked about, so make sure that everything is sorted. Good.